A very good afternoon to all of you ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our sunset safari, where I have discovered something new that I'm going to share with you just from my observations. My name is Jamie Patterson, and I have Brian this afternoon on camera with me. We've got the full complement out and about. We've got Andrew flying the drone, Peter driving around on Nat.Geo with VM, as well as Jamie. Each one will have Jamie's fun fact of the day, and it'll be something that I've learned, since there's a new lesson to learn every single live safari. I might need to come up with a better tagline than Jamie's fun facts, and I'm open to suggestions. These yellow-billed oxpeckers, we've seen them fairly regularly. I was with them the last time I did a sunset safari with Brian, and they're in a pair, and they're always on the same buffalo. Now, I want to share more about this with you, but for now it seems as though Scott has found something very exciting to show you.
Can you believe it? Get down, get down, get down. I'm just going to whisper into my mic. As Andre zooms in, you'll see there's a leopard up ahead of us. I can't believe it. We thought he was going to be drinking down at the dam. We heard some of the thick knees, some birds that were alarm calling. And this leopard was seen late this morning by Hayden. He did a late morning drive. And I'm guessing this is the same leopard. This is Mvula. Can you believe it? We're going to ask Nikki please to get Peter or Jamie here as quickly as possible. He doesn't even know we're here. The wind is in our favor, blowing towards you, Andre. And as long as we sit still in the shadows here, he probably won't even notice us. Can you believe this? What a great start to the afternoon. Now, I don't want to closer to him in the fear that we may chase him away. And most of the time when you encounter cats on foot, be it lion, leopard or cheetah, they will often run away from you. They're not confrontational animals unless you push them to, or unless they've got a real reason to hate man, which in this area they don't. So as long as we treat them with respect and respect this distance between us, there should be no problems. If we try and get closer, it may agitate him. So we're just going to wait here for Jamie to arrive. I don't think it's going to take I don't actually think he's going to go anywhere. It's quite a hot afternoon, and he's just relaxing in the shade back there. So I think we're in a really fortunate position. If he was on the move now, it'd be a lot more tricky to stay with him until Jamie got here. I can't believe he still doesn't know we're here. There is a strong chance, though, that he may look around and then notice us. They do have very good vision. What an absolute surprise. We had driven up the road towards the dam in the hope that we'd find some of his tracks, and we didn't find any. And we were about to start the long and tedious search, trying to work out where his footprints would lead us to. And then Bright, one of the trackers that some of you may remember, alerted us to the water thickney calls. So instead of walking back to where he was last seen, we walked towards the dam, and voila! And it's not only Bright back in camp, there's also Jeffrey. So we've got two wonderful trackers back in camp. Oh no, look, he's gone to sleep. Can you believe this? Absolutely crazy. Okay, well, apparently Jamie's going to be about another 5 or 6 minutes, so I'm just going to get comfortable here. And whoever thought that we'd be able to sit in the African bush about 60 meters away from a leopard. Oh. I think he's noticed us. He may have heard us. But I'm not too sure. He could well have heard us. He kind of looked back. He didn't lock eye contact with us. So I don't think he actually worked out that we were right here, but it is very possible that he could detect that we're here. They've got incredible hearing, and it is possible that he will find us, and if he does see us, he'll probably just look at us. But there is that slight chance. Look at his tail wagging from side to side there. Well, this is a great ambush opportunity for him, waiting at the wall. A little bit thin, he had a bit of a limp, and he has been chased out of his territory by Tingana, who's a big male. Hello to Shamal, and very happy to hear that you are as astounded as we are with this incredible sight. And you can see how he's pricked up his ears looking in that direction. We've just got a comment through from Susie thinking that he did hear us, and yeah, I think you might be right. When he turned his head back a little bit earlier, Susie, there is quite a strong chance that something wasn't quite right, and that's why he looked back here. But I'm confident that he didn't actually work out what exactly, and that's why he just kind of gazed over in this direction, but didn't lock eyes with us. He would have been a lot more kind of concerned and focused on us if he did actually see us. So Jamie's getting close by now, and let's just let her know that he's lying up on the dam wall. So depending on where she's approaching from, he's on the kind of eastern side of the dam wall. And I think she's approaching along the same road that we came along. So she'll probably see us as she goes past, which will be great, and we'll be able to show it to you. And Clown Sharon would like to know exactly which dam wall Mvula is lying on. Clown Sharon, this is Buffels Hook Dam, and this is the only water on Djuma where Mvula's territory overlaps. He no longer comes nearly as far as the Djuma waterhole, whereas when I started here this time last year, his territory encompassed the whole of Djuma, including the waterhole and the far western banks of Djuma leading up to Arathusa. This is awesome. You're about to get some incredibly good views of this male leopard, and I'm so happy that we could find him for you. I'll move out without him actually seeing or seeing us. Oh, I think he may have just spotted us now, but that's probably because Jamie's car's coming here. So and there goes Jamie. She's just going to get into a good position before we link you across to her. And this is so awesome. Brian and Jamie are now ready. They've got good signal, and we're going to creep away and leave you guys with the leopard. Enjoy.
cool is that? That Scott was able to bring you that incredible view of Mvula on foot. There, let me tell you from experience, there is probably no better feeling in this world. That is absolutely incredible. Now we've managed to rush one of our vehicles in. I'm so excited. This is the first time I've ever had a proper view of an incredible experience. I've never ever seen him before. Now I wanted to just make sure that we could bring you this picture before I try and reposition slightly. I can't go through to the other side of him because that will put us into the dip and you'll lose our signal. So we'll be watching him from now. What an awesome way for our sunset safari. Head down, fast asleep. You can see that he was not in any way disturbed by Scott making his way in here. What I'm going to try and do is put us up on the dam wall, give us a clearer view. And Anne, since he was found on foot by Scott, you were saying that you hope Scott's tree climbing skills Let me try and get up onto the dam wall. We might be able to see him better. But also stop us from disappearing in every now and again. There we go, a slightly better view of a massive male. Now Sharon, you were wondering how close we are and how close Scott was, and just to give you a rough idea, at the moment we are sitting probably about 12 meters away from him. When Scott saw him, he was at about 40 meters away from where Scott was sitting crouched. So the perfect, it's actually the but he could epic experience. Now we're going to spend as much time as possible with him, but there are going to be cars that will want to come and share the sighting with us, but let's enjoy him for
a Schlegel's or a Peters. Now let's go into the microscope view and have a look at him here. He's actually really fascinating to look at through the microscope. We'll head through to the microscope now. Shortly we will head through to the microscope. Hang on a second, sorry, I'm missing the final control. Go again with that. Okay, we're going to quickly go across to the leopard. He's moving now. We'll come back to the snake now.
I was going to reposition, but then Mvula did it for me. An incredible sighting we are being treated to this afternoon. Donna, I think you're right in this change of view. It definitely looks as though James and Hayden were absolutely correct. He looks like he could use a good meal. He is looking hungry. He might be out on the prowl. It would be unlikely for him to go hunting in the next hour or so, but it is very hot. Ginny, this is my first time seeing him as well, and I absolutely agree with you. His neck is enormous. It's incredible to see that powerful, solid structure, and that will have served him very well over his years as the dominant male in this territory to help defend him, keep those vital veins and arteries and the trachea safe from the attentions of other males if he gets into fights. And then of course having the strength to drag sometimes exceptionally heavy prey up into trees. A leopard that is pure power and strength. It's beauty in motion. As I said, it's blistering hot this afternoon, so he's decided he's very thirsty. He's going to have his work cut out for him, hunting now, because there's lots of groundwater around, so the animals are scattered out all over the place. And I think he might go back to his position in the shade. Okay, I'm glad that we could make you happy. Apparently you've been missing Mvula. Well, I'm thrilled to see him. Oh, he's going to lie down right there. Interesting.
That we will take you straight back to Mvula as soon as the signal does become stable there, and I will keep an eye on it. So let's quickly have a look at the snake. Right, let's try again. Let's head back across to this magnificent microscope feed that we have, and I'm going to show you a few bits and pieces about this amazing little snake. So as I said, a Schlegel's, a Schlintz's, or a Peter's blind, and they have various different show you on the head. Right, across to the microscope. Here we go. Now, apparently we can't get... Okay, so... Sorry, 1 second. We're just having one or two technical difficulties. In the meantime... Oh, there we go. Well done. Okay, so... Now, the most important or interesting thing to look at there is that thing there. That is an eye, believe it or not. It's called a parietal eye. And the parietal eye is photosensitive, which means basically it's responsible not for seeing and forming images, but for testing night and day, and it's responsible for regulating what's known as the circadian rhythm. So whether or not, or when an animal decides to be awake and around and active, and when it decides to hibernate, and when it decides to mate, and all those sorts of things are governed often by day length. And that's what that eye is for, the circadian rhythm. A wonderful thing, circadian rhythms. I love discussing them in humans especially. Then we've got one other interesting thing to show you here, and that's the mouth. There you can see the mouth of this little snake. It's open. The snake is dead. Please don't think that I'm harming it at all. But there's the little mouth. It's absolutely astonishing. And you can see it doesn't have very obvious fangs at all. And we are going to go to an imaginary ad break, everybody. So if I say see you just now and then carry on talking, it's not because we're actually going anywhere. Alright, so we're going to look into his mouth there. Not much to see really in the way of enormous and terrifying fangs, and that's because these snakes are not particularly dangerous to human beings. In fact, they're not dangerous at all. Right, we'll see you after the ad break. And miraculously we are back. Sorry, we do have to do these practices, everyone. We are going to do National Geographic Big Cat Week very soon, so we have to get into the habit. So you'll just have to bear with us for the next little while, I'm afraid. Right, let's look at its main defense now, which is not in fact its mouth, but this sting that is on the bottom of its bottom. There it is, and Steph was just trying to catch one now. He's outside frolicking about for various bits and pieces, and he was attacked viciously by this little sort of pointy end. And what the snake does is it wiggles around. If we come back to the view of the snake here, when you there it is, what you do is, what it does is it sort of strikes with its back end, and then the back end starts to waggle like this. And what that does is that it gives the potential predator the indication that this is the front end, okay, which is probably a lot more intimidating than that rather small little mouth that sits at that end. Okay, I think we're good to go with Mvula, if I'm not mistaken. I'm just going to quickly get an update on that so that you don't have to stare at me holding a worm type thing. No, we're not going back to Mvula. We're going to go back to the trackers, the people who found Mvula with Scott, and we'll see you a little bit later.
How awesome is this? We've got another black and yellow creature. What have I just heard? Take a close look. I'm just going to listen carefully. I think I may have just heard a buffalo. But this is a beautiful beetle. I'm not sure if it's hiding now. It's busy eating this baboon stick. Nibbling this beautiful purple flower. And as I said, I'm pretty sure that this is a blister beetle that causes your skin to blister very badly if you handle them. They exude a horrible secretion from their leg joints, causing you to blister. Let's take a closer look here. I think I can actually see a buffalo, and they're quite close to us. And they're quite interesting animals to see on foot. Let's take a closer look here. I'm just going to test the wind quickly. That's good. The buffalo just up ahead to our left here. And if we creep forward this way, we should probably be able to get you some views of them without disturbing them. And then we're going to back up once we have got you a quick view. They're incredibly dangerous animals on foot, buffalo, so we don't want to take any chances here. And if we just look straight through this little gap here, we might get you a few views of these mighty Cape buffalo. They look like a few buffalo bulls. You'll probably only be able to see their legs moving, and possibly the heads and horns are going to pop out shortly. And to all of you who have sent through very kind thank you messages for finding Mvula, don't thank me alone. It was also a four-man team involving Jandre, Bright and Jeffrey. I'm just going to stand back next to Jandre here and see if he's managing any shots. I've given him a tricky job here. It's incredibly thick in there, but you may have got a glimpse, and we're now going to send you across to Mvula, and we're going to backtrack out of this situation and make sure we get into a safe area away from these buffalo. Enjoy the leopard.
And we've managed to find ourselves the perfect position, looking down and over Mvula as he rests in the sand. He's nudged himself into the perfect spot, and I bet that sand is wonderful and cool. Well, what an incredible start we have had to this afternoon safari. We've managed to reposition and move our way around so that we've got the perfect view of this male leopard. His name is Mvula, and he is one of the dominant boys of this territory, or he is the dominant boy of this territory, giving himself a very delicate little lick on the chest there. This is my first time seeing him. I'm absolutely astounded to have a look at the size and the strength in that neck. He's enormous. He actually almost doesn't have a neck. It's more like his head blends seamlessly into his shoulders. That's how much muscle there is there. And he's panting gently. I mentioned earlier, I think he's looking a little bit thin, like he could use a good meal. He will definitely be a busy leopard at some point, probably when the temperature starts to go down a little bit. For now, I think he's going to be happy to sit in the shade. And I imagine that sand is still slightly damp after the rain that we've had, so he's found himself a really nice, cool spot where he can rest for the afternoon. But we're in perfect position to then follow him as he goes about his late afternoon and evening activities. And this, of course, is a great vantage point to be at. He's at Buffelshoek Dam. And a lot of the animals will be passing by here every now and again to come for a drink. And there's something extremely stately about him, having just met him for the first time. He is very much the king leopard of this area, surveying his domain. Yesterday I was out on foot as part of the tracking team and saw a leopard, and I'm starting to think it might have been Mvula. The more that I look at him and I think back to exactly where he was versus where he is now, he was only about maybe 2 kilometers away, but he was moving in this direction. Oh, exhausted. Something we've remarked upon a lot in the last few days is the fact that leopards manage to make whatever kind of position they are in look entirely comfortable. They drape, I think that's the perfect way to put it, they drape themselves over whatever they happen to be lying on, just like house cats do. We just had that amazing view of Mvula going down to Buffelshoek Dam to drink, and I must say, sitting up here, which is directly downwind of the dam, there's the distinct smell of stagnant water. And in answer to your question, Mercedes, who's watching in California, the water of Buffelshoek Dam I wouldn't really describe as clean, bearing in mind, of course, that the animals out here have a far greater immune system than we do. Now, that algae and slime that's sitting on the top, that's the first indication of some quite seriously stagnant and low water. And it does make it very smelly. There's a distinct mud smell that's rolling off the top of the dam. I'm sure you can hear the wind that's blowing in our direction. It's not clean. Buffalo defecate in it. The hippos that have been wallowing in here for the last few days, although they aren't here now, they will have been defecating and urinating in it. And of course the elephants also aren't too picky about it either. So when they come down and have a nice big mud wallow and move around, they're going to add their own level of excrement to it. So it's not clean, it's quite shallow, which means that dirty amount is rather concentrated. But never fear, the animals are a hell of a lot more resilient than we are. They've got much stronger digestive systems. In terms of Mvula and all leopards, when they need to drink versus when they don't, you'll probably find that they show a preference for puddles, rainwater puddles. They're much cleaner, especially if the animals haven't been wallowing in them yet. But he will drink every day if he can. That being said, leopards don't need to drink as much as other carnivores. They're quite well adapted to go quite extended periods of time without water, and could probably do a week or so without having a drink. They get a lot of liquid from the animals that they kill, or the kills that they make, and the blood that they drink. Still a bit salty, so it's not an entirely perfect system. And so if they have a dam or have access to water, then they'll drink every day if they can. And I think he was just too lazy to go looking for fresh water. Now, he's lying on his left side, but Susie, I know that you mentioned that you saw Mvula had a porcupine, Julie, you noticed that Mvula had a porcupine quill on the left side of his neck. And so far, unfortunately for us, he hasn't presented that side for close inspection. It's very common to see leopards with porcupine quills either embedded in their lips or their noses or in their necks. And I think you'll probably find that either he will have pulled it out or a buildup of pus and white blood cells around it will have pushed it out. But you never know, sometimes they do become embedded and very seriously infected, and they can actually disadvantage an animal. I saw that picture of Mvula. It didn't look too serious. I think it'll probably have made its way out by now. Unfortunately, it was in a rather tricky looking spot, which I think is probably why it was still in there. He can't quite bend his neck around to be able to get to it and pull it out with his teeth. And of course, porcupine quills are barbed instruments. It's not that easy getting them out. It's probably quite painful. And they're also, as I said, not the cleanest of weapons, so they can leave quite a serious infection. But again, same as the water issue, on the cleanliness of the water, these animals are far more resilient than we are. Their immune systems are built to protect them against incidents like this, since they don't have medical aids, doctors and antibiotics on standby. For the most part, they get on with things and they heal up incredibly well. Hopefully he'll lift his head for us at some point in this sighting and we'll be able to see if he's still got that quill. Alrighty, well, we're sitting with a leopard that is newish to me. I've seen him once through very thick bushes, but Wolfgang, you're watching all the way in Sweden, and I guess Mvula might be a new leopard for you as well, which is very exciting. You were wondering if I could spell it for you. Yes, I can. It is M-V-U-L-A, Mvula, and it means rain. I'm not quite sure where that name came from, but it's obviously something associated with this particular male. And if you guys do know the story behind it, then please let me know. And you can do that on hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or you can email through to questions@WildEarth.tv. And of course, each of our leopards is unique and distinct and precious to us. And I know that Ginny, you wanted a close-up so we could have a look at his spot pattern. For now, we're not going to be able to get any closer. I'm sure at some point he is going to move, and then we'll hopefully be able to get ourselves into a better position. I will be on the lookout for a spot pattern. And speaking of animals with unique spot patterns, I believe that Peter is at the home of another one of our special spotted animals. So let's head across to him so that he can say hello to you all.
Well, good afternoon everyone, and it seems we are spotting things everywhere, so brilliant viewing there, Scott and them, finding Mvula. Fantastic to see that leopard. He's absolutely stunning. Jamie enjoying it as well, but as she said, from one spot pattern to another one. In fact, these guys, when they're very small, they don't have spots yet, but these two adults on the ground, they are so spotted that they're actually called spotted hyena. And while we've been sitting here, we've been here a couple of minutes. At first we thought it's just these two. Obviously we know there's a young one here, many of us. If it's your first safari with us, welcome firstly to Africa. For many of you, this is not the first one, it's the manyth one. And you'll know from the last few days and last couple of days actually, there's great viewing here of this young hyena. But at the moment he's in the den. We did view him very briefly, maybe for about 10-15 seconds. He popped his head out earlier, so he is awake. More so perhaps than his mother at the moment. This is the female, or the alpha female, that's the mother of the youngster, if that makes sense. She's the female we've been seeing with it suckling. And we're going to sit here for a few minutes. It is quite warm still, although for this time of year it's actually very pleasant, sort of that in that pleasant range of hot, not where you get uncomfortable yet. Also fantastic bit of good fortune to catch Mvula while he's drinking, there's certain things that you like to see in nature. When you're out here, you want to see everything firstly, obviously. But then there's certain things that's always great to see, and that would be, many of us, obviously, we're always looking for a hunt because of the excitement that comes with it. But also certain activities, and drinking is one of those. Whenever you get a nice big herd of elephant or pride of lion or wild dog when they're hunting, or leopard like we did this afternoon, it's always great to see them when they go drinking, just because it's obviously beautiful being around a waterhole. Also, when you're looking at something drinking water, anything else might approach. I guess that expectation that goes with it makes it exciting. And maybe also because as humans we're water dependent, so you're always happy when something else is having a drink. A little bit like looking at these guys, because as humans we also like to rest, and that's what they're doing. There's nothing much to do for them at the moment. They'll be more active again tonight. The rest of the clan, I assume, are not here at the moment. They could be sleeping just under a bush somewhere close by or far away even. And in the meantime, taking it easy is a good idea. Yeah, pulling them for. Sorry guys, I'm just talking to the game drive quickly. Yeah, he's inside now, but he's there, so you can come. He popped out a few minutes ago. Sorry, we try not to talk too much on the Game Drive channel when we live with you. But that is firstly a very good friend of mine, Abel. He was my first tracker that I ever worked with in Sabi Sands. He was the guy that taught me the roads, the area, introduced me to everyone, helped teach me Shangaan, so I couldn't ignore him on the road. I just had to say hi to him. He's going to come look as well. And I think what I'm tempted to do is we'll have one last look just at the entrance, if you want, or the hole where the den goes in, just in case the little guy pops his head out and surprises us. But if Abel gets closer, I'm probably going to pull out of here, because as we can see, they are sleeping at the moment. I'm going to continue on a little bit, see what else we might find, maybe even head up to Mvula as well, sort of over the next half an hour or so, and then come back here, if not myself, perhaps Jamie, just depending on how the rest of the day pans out. That's the beautiful thing with the safari, is that you don't really know what's going to happen as the afternoon unfolds. What's even better for us is you've got the ability to be on two different vehicles, as well as on the walk, as well as in the tent, and see things from the air. But especially two vehicles and a walk, that's the sort of three safari experiences that people come out here to see, and you've got the ability to jump between those, so you have a 300% chance of having a great afternoon. If you only have one vehicle, like the other safari vehicles, you only have a 100% chance of having a great afternoon. And I think what we're going to do is make a little bit of space here for Abel, so that he can sit here with his guest on his own, just like we've been fortunate enough to have this to ourselves. And then try and get back here a little bit later. When it cools down, see if we can't get that young guy being active and playful with his mother and his, well, I guess it would be his cousin, probably, most likely, the young hyena. This is probably, it's the first time I've seen this den active, obviously. I've seen many different hyena dens in this area over the years. There's one on Torchwood further to the east of us, which is under a natural rock bridge, granite rock bridge, which is spectacular. But this one, I would say, is up there with some of the most sort of beautiful settings as well of dens that I've seen. Just a big Plymouth mound, nice trees, nice shadow and shade around it. Very exciting to have that. And from a guiding point of view, from the safari guides or game rangers, as they're sort of colloquially known sometimes, hyena den is a great sort of ace up the sleeve, if you want, or something in the bag already, because you know that if you've got guests coming out here, it's a quiet afternoon, and it's maybe not leopard like we have today, or lion, or elephant, all those other things. You know that the hyena den is something you can go to. So it's a really great sort of aspect of a sort of safari story. As is questions, obviously. Having a conversation, very important. So we have a chat with each other. Hello, Deborah. Great question. Deborah was just saying there that she's wondering whether the mother, in other words the female we were looking at now, does she go off and feed and then come back, or do the clan bring food back for her? Deborah, it's the spotted hyena, it's a little bit of both. but mostly they go and feed on their own. So she will go away. I mean, we saw her yesterday morning. We had a great time with her at the den. But prior to that, we actually saw her moving through quarantine, heading back this way after the night activity. So that youngster can sleep during the night. She goes off and feeds with the rest of the clan, and then in the morning she comes back and then spends a lot of the time, the daytime hours, with those youngsters. Guys, I'm going to say very quickly, as I said, this is a very good friend of mine. We can't show you the people, but Abel, nice to see you for a long time, eh? Look, grey hair coming everywhere for us. Yeah. We're live at the moment. Oh, there's Abel. Great. Hold on, man. As I was just telling them about Abel, guys, this is the first guy that I worked with. He taught me the roads, the tracks. All my friends I have here now, some Shangaan, so you can have an awesome time. Do you know Abel from before? Okay, well, then you know. All right. Enjoy.
Thank you very much.
Hey. Cool, guys. Enjoy it.
Thanks.
Apologies for interrupting ourselves there in our conversation, but with hyena, so that's pretty much how it would work. The brown hyena, which is a different species, which we actually get here, but they're seen only once every 17 years or so, judging by the last time we saw one. They often take food back to the den, but spotted hyena, they do. I mean, you do find food back at the den, but often that would be bones and things they take back more for the youngsters really to feed on, to play with, to hone their teeth on, kind of thing. It's not like with wild dogs. Wild dogs, for instance, is right at the other end of the scale, where the rest of the pack will go and hunt, and they will bring food back for the alpha female right in the beginning, and then for the pups, all of the group, not just the female, but the rest of the pack would bring food back to the young ones at the den. In her case, she would go feeding many nights, foraging around, and if there's a big carcass, obviously lions killed something, she would go there with the rest of the clan and then come back to the den herself. Well observed there, Elise. You are asking how well fed the female is, or whether she's had a meal recently. She was looking a bit thin. She was actually not thin as in unhealthy. In fact, this specific female, often the alpha females can look a little bit sort of rough, for lack of a better word, because quite often they are, the biggest, and they've had to fight sometimes for their dominance and things like that. So it can be a bit scarred sometimes. But this specific female, even though we recognize it from a scar on her rump, she's in very good condition. So she might not be sort of full at the moment, but yesterday morning when we saw her, she had eaten the night before. And I know that Eugene, actually, who's looking after many of our technical things, that's just a sign for one of the parks or one of the lodges up here, Bofosik area. Eugene said he saw her walking past with a bone in her mouth, probably to take back to the youngsters more. That would obviously suggest that she got that somewhere last night, so they would have fed last night. So she's in good shape. But also she's rearing a small one at the moment, so a lot of her energy goes into milk production. Hyenas have got some of the highest, richest milk of all mammals, so that would obviously take quite a bit of energy, if you want, from her. Guys, we're going to take it easy here, just head along. What you can see is a very long straight road. This is the northern boundary of the area we drive in, although it's all open ecologically. And see what we find en route, maybe some general game, and then work it up towards that leopard again later on. We're on a little break at the moment, and just to update you guys, obviously we're busy rehearsing for Big Cat Week. Big Cat Week is a very exciting event for all of us on many levels with Nat.Geo Wild North America, and that's starting Friday night for you if you are from North America. Saturday morning early for us. That'll be the first prime time drive. Saturday morning our time, the sunrise safari, which obviously is evening time for those of you guys in the North South America Canada time zone. But in that, obviously, we're rehearsing something like the ad breaks, for instance. So at the moment we're in that. Just to explain this a little bit, you'll notice sometimes how we talk. Welcome back, see you after the break, that kind of thing. And while we're in that, I'm going to continue on. We had some wildebeest earlier, and seeing as I'm on the vehicle with wildebeest, which is our nickname for VM, we're going to go look for them for a bit. Jamie's still with the leopard having a nap. Enjoy it over there. We will see you back here in a bit.
Now, Mvula is still faster. I was about to say he was fast asleep. He's just lifted his head up. Now, a little bit earlier, he looked across in our direction, and I was struck by, I think, probably the most incredible pair of eyes that I have seen while I've been working on Djuma. He has the most incredible, I guess I'd describe them as pale blue eyes. At some point soon, I'm sure he will look back across to us. He really is an exceptionally interesting looking leopard. He's got tattered ears, a sign of his age and a sign of the experiences that he's been through in his life. And I love slightly tattered leopards. I think it adds a dash of character to them, because you know that each and every little injury has come with some story to tell, and they lead very difficult lives out here. Mvula as a male, and as a male just sort of not quite reaching the end of his prime, but getting close, that horizon is approaching, he will have his work cut out for him. He's going to be patrolling an area that is at least twice the size of the territory that, say, Karula patrols, because he is a male. They tend to hold much bigger territories, so he'll be moving from place to place, constantly marking, calling, reinforcing his dominance in this area, and then of course attending to the various females that he does overlap with. We know for certain that he has mated with Karula in the past. He's probably mated with her fairly recently in the most recent estrus cycle. So he could well be the father of the next set of cubs due to be born. I've mentioned that he is very hungry looking. His hip bones are sticking out ever so slightly. Looks like he could use a big meal, but he's currently quite content to rest himself in the shade, right sitting down below us in the sand and enjoying the relief from the heat of the day. Now, Dave, who's watching in Florida, you were wondering when big cats hunt, what sort of time of day, and is there any set pattern to it? Well, for the most part, leopards and lions are nocturnal hunters. That being said, I have seen more leopards moving about in the middle of the day than the textbooks would ever predict that you will see, and they're opportunists. So if, for example, some unsuspecting Nyala started coming down towards him, and he's got the protection of the bank that he has, there's absolutely no reason why he wouldn't hunt in the middle of the day. But predominantly, most of their hunting happens at night, especially for lions, because they've got roughly about, I don't know, 80 kilograms over a leopard, for the males even more, and that means that they overheat really, really rapidly. They get too hot very quickly, so hunting in the middle of the day is a bit tricky for them. You generally see them only really hunting at night, when they can make the use of the advantage of their incredible night vision. Cheetah, on the other hand, are completely diurnal. It means that they're not in competition with the two big threats out here to them, the leopard and the lion, and they'll be out in the early morning or the late afternoon hunting at the same time as we see the wild dogs hunt. He's lifted his head up, he's just looking around him. Looking out across the dam. We are still sitting with Mvula. We were discussing a little bit about his hunting techniques and whether or not he would be heading out during sort of roundabout now. It is starting to get a bit cooler, and although it's been very hot in the sun, the wind has created a nice cool chill factor. He just shifted around ever so slightly there, and I always imagine that it's like when you sleep in a hot room or something and you flip the pillow over that you're resting your head on to get to the cooler side. You very often see leopards do that, just that little shift around, find a more comfortable spot that hasn't yet been warmed up. And I can imagine that that is the perfect, he's found the perfect tail rest as well on that ridge of sand. I've said that his name is Mvula, which is, or has the meaning of rain. And Sean, you were wondering who names them and why it's always a traditional African name. Well, Sean, and Sean, by the way, is watching from Secunda, which is in South Africa. Sean, it's generally an honor that is passed. The naming practices have changed over the last few years. It was typically something that was conferred as an honor to one of the longest serving guides, somebody who's proved themselves in the field. It then went to the person who first found the cubs. And once the cubs reach adulthood or reach about 1 year old, then that ranger and his tracker get the honor of naming. It's now become something more democratic, and I know that it is voted on between guides as to which name to include or which name to name the leopard. It's not always with a traditional African name. There is, of course, Shadow, and Shadow is literally the shadows that she moves about him. Shadow is the Karula's daughter. I'm trying to think of other names. For the most part, though, it is tradition to name the leopards after the languages that were originally, or the inhabitants that would have been moving about in this land originally. And there is something innately beautiful about the name Mvula as well. He's not going anywhere, and so neither are we. And I believe that Scott has found himself in a hole, and I think we should go and find out why.
Now we're going to do something a little bit different, and you're basically a warthog now. This is warthog level that you are being exposed to, and imagine how scary it would be walking through this thick bush at that eye level, and then all of a sudden this pops out. Ah! Hello everyone, and welcome to the aardvark hole. I'm going to jump out of it immediately because it's extremely uncomfortable in there. But what's interesting is how deep this hole is. Come and have a look. My whole body fits inside, not comfortably, but I'm going to just shine my flashlight down in there, and you can see a perfectly well dug hole. That is probably about 1.5 meters down. And as you can see, I could make sure that there was no spiders or snakes or scorpions in there before I jumped down. And it was a good opportunity to climb into a hole for you guys. I hope you enjoyed that. I've been wanting to do it for a long time, but most of the holes are too scary to climb in because you can't be sure what may be lurking inside. Now these aardvark's burrows create wonderful homes for certain animals, like the hyena you've been viewing with Peter at their den site. There's a strong chance that it was aardvark that were the initial animals to burrow into that termite mound, making it easier for the hyenas. Look, the hyenas can dig for themselves, but not nearly as well as the aardvark can. And interestingly, there's a few more excavations around here. Haven't had a look at them yet because as soon as I saw that hole I climbed into it. But let me just get the sand out my shoes quickly. But you can see another hole here, not very active, and that one I can also see all the way to the bottom too. Really deep, and isn't it remarkable how powerful these animals are to be able to excavate all that way in search of termites, their main food source. Now, I just heard a dung beetle fly over at high speed,
They're kind of like jumbo jets. They make a loud noise and they're quite easy to see flying around. You can often see them flying towards you and you have to dodge them because, again, they don't have the best flight control. The piloting test to become a dung beetle pilot is not very difficult. And one was flying off in the direction of James's tent. It's probably not going to make it there, but he does have one there and he would like to show it to you. Enjoy.
Hello everybody, and Scott was nearly dive bombed by one of these. I think he's being a little unfair by saying that they're not very good flyers. Look at this fellow. He, I think, is probably a Mrs. actually, Mrs. Dung Beetle. There's probably an egg in there. What she's trying to do now is dig a hole in my hand where she can bury her ball. There is an egg inside it, like I say. She's become married, mated already. Her husband would have seduced her with a pile of dung. Imagine that happened in human society. And what we're going to do is release this fellow onto the ground, or a lady onto the ground, because she's been pushing around this dung ball in my hand for some time. And the feeling of it, I just want to try and describe the feeling of these incredible, you can see that digging part of her head that she uses to scrape dung and then dig a hole in the ground, and she's using the sun to orientate. There, that's what I wanted to show you. She turns around on top of the ball and orientates using the sun. They use the polarization of the light apparently, and there are even some species that can navigate using the Milky Way. There she goes. She's headed consistently in a sort of southerly direction. There we go, and she's going south again. Let's see where she goes this time. Well, I mean, she's going nowhere at the moment. Right, let's disturb her slightly and see what she does. She's picked up exactly where she's going. She knows she's going south. I'm going to try and orientate her north. Oh, she's not being fooled. There we go, turns around and goes south again. Isn't that unbelievable? How incredible is that? Let's do it once more, and then I'm going to put her down because I think we're being a little unfair. Right, now she's facing the wrong way. There she orientates completely to the correct way and goes south. That's amazing. Let's put her down to head. Let's put her down to go south here. Off she goes. How magnificent is that? There goes. That's called a plum dung beetle, and you can see from the beautiful colour on it. Going due south, the plum dung beetle, Madam Plum Dung Beetle, is going to go and dig herself a hole, bury that, and next season I think the larvae will hatch into another beautiful plum dung beetle. Now we do have a treat for you. Let's head across to the picture being formed by the ever-improving, astonishingly, it's amazing he can get any better, Drone Commander Andrew Francis, and we'll take you over to him, and he's going to hopefully go and find us some wildebeest. At the moment he's looking straight at us, of course. Now there's Graham Wallington. Wave, Graham. There we go. And Hayden Turner. Wave, Hayden. Yeah, that's it. And Louise Pavitt, all trying to hide behind the tent. We found them though, didn't we? Well done, Andrew. Good job. Now we're going to go and look at some wildebeest, and just keep an eye. Every day this plain that we call quarantine clearings will change in colour slightly. It will become slightly greener. There's a nice layer of water underneath the surface, so the grass seeds will be drinking that thirstily and starting to grow, hopefully, and greening this up nicely for the grazers like the impala and the wildebeest, who are going to now start having their babies. Andrew, bottom right of corner. There we go. There he is. Well done, Andrew. He's really getting pretty good at this now. There's a herd of beautiful wildebeest, and they're probably heading down to try and find a puddle of water somewhere to drink. It's about that time of the evening. They'll also be looking for the choicest grasses. And although they're not nearly as selective as, say, something like a duiker or a steenbok, they will be pretty selective about the areas in which they graze. And to the uninitiated, I suppose it would be very difficult to tell whether they were being selective or not. But they will select grasses for their taste, and that's based on the soils where they grow, and also based on the different grass species, and of course also on the height. You'll often see pictures of them in East Africa with herds of zebra following or just in front of them. And the zebra eat a slightly different length of grass, and that's generally why they move like that. But look at the way they interweave between the different trees there. Definitely a pathfinder in front, I would say. Probably I would suggest that that is probably the oldest cow in this herd. There'll be some youngsters in the middle, probably some young bulls behind. And what we're hoping this drone shot is going to show us eventually is the different interactions that we can't see when they're on the vehicle. Now look, they've stopped. And I'm just trying to notice if there's any kind of defensive position. This is just wonderful to be able to see this kind of angle. Let's see how they fan. Where are the youngsters? Does look to me like the youngsters, top of your screen there, the one closest to the top of your screen looks to be a youngster to me. And I think that they are being kept slightly away from the front of the herd, probably 2 adult cows out front. There may be, it's unlikely there would be a bull with them. The bull normally will set up a territory on his own, and this is just magnificent. There we go, there's a bull coming up behind there, a couple more cows, and I think if we start to spend extended periods like this watching these herds, we're going to get some fascinating insights, and that's indeed one of the reasons we've got this drone. Also, just last thing here, bottom of your screen now, I think there's a very pregnant wildebeest there, and certainly if you see the impala from the air at the moment, they really have the most incredibly swollen fat bellies, all just about to give birth. And you can see why. The earth is starting to green slightly, the grass is coming up, and that's extremely necessary, of course, for all of the new mothers to be in the herbivore world, the impala and the wildebeest and Inyala and Kudu and all the others that are about to give birth now. Right, from the herbivores, magnificent shot, well done Andrew. Let's go straight across to Buffelshoek Dam with glorious Mvula, my favorite leopard.
From the air back into the ground, and still with a sleepy Mvula, who hasn't done much apart from to shift position so that he's now facing away from us. Now that does give us a slight view of his left hand side, but still not clear enough to see if that porcupine quill is still embedded in his neck or not. I can't reposition without risking losing all of our viewers, which I would hate to do, so we're going to stay here for now, and hopefully he turns around and gives us a slightly better angle to work with. And a big hello to Gracie, who is one of our regular viewers. Gracie is 8 years old. Gracie, you wanted to know, how do I know that he's hungry and whether or not I can hear his tummy rumbling. Now, I'm not close enough to hear his tummy rumbling, but I'm sure that it is. I'm just looking at how thin he is. His hip bones are sticking out a little bit. And usually when a leopard has just eaten, they eat so much that they get that big round tummy. Remember when you were watching Karula the last few days when she was sitting on quarantine clearing, she had that huge round belly. Mvula, the leopard that we're watching now, he doesn't have that enormous round belly. I think he's going to go hunting soon. You were wondering why he hasn't eaten, and I think that's just because he hasn't managed to catch himself some food yet. And he'll probably try again tonight when it's a little bit cooler and he's got the advantage of darkness so that he can sneak up on things. But for now, he's not terribly hungry. He's definitely not starving, and he's quite happy to spend some time lazing about in the sand before he has to go out looking for food. And I'm sure that when he does, we might even be seeing him tomorrow morning with a very round, very full belly, or maybe even tonight, who knows. Definitely a very strong possibility. The wind is blowing out here, which also makes for really useful hunting conditions. It means that the animals that he's going to try and snack on are going to be distracted. Their senses aren't as acute as they usually are. The wind distracts from what they can hear and what they can smell. interesting question. Now, we saw Mvula go down towards the dam and have a quick drink. And Mr. Moustache, you were wondering if leopards dislike water as much as house cats do. And the answer is no, I think that they don't. I still think they're quite finicky about having muddy paws. And if they can avoid it, if you watch a leopard go down to the water's edge to drink, he'll try and find the sort of least muddy patch where he can go and access the water without getting his feet dirty. But I don't think there's as much consternation and fear around water. I've seen leopards swim before. They can swim. They do occasionally have to cross rivers when there's floods. And of course, they can't really go inside when it's raining. Or at least I hope they never go inside when it's raining. That's definitely something we would rather avoid. And they'll have to make do with the shelter of trees. So for the most part, they're not quite as fearful of water as other cats are. And I've seen lions swim as well. And of course, all animals out here are capable of swimming to some degree, apart from the hippo, somewhat bizarrely. The hippo must be one of the only mammals out here that has no swimming ability at all. Also, that being said, come to think of it, one thing that we did do where I used to work was we worked a lot with panthera and camera traps, and we put them up all over the place. And the first year we did this was in 2013, and that was a very, very rainy season. It was actually a flood year. We had some tremendous amounts of water flowing past the reserve. The reserve I was at had quite a lot more in the way of very, very broad drainage lines that actually became flowing rivers, and we put a lot of the camera traps up around there. And we had more than one picture, spectacular pictures, of leopards leaping across easily stretches of water that must have been about 6 meters, 7 meters, and you could just see how perfect and effortless it looked, even in a still frame, launching themselves across the water to avoid getting their feet wet. Well, that could be more of a mud thing more than anything else. And of course, camera traps, for those of you who are unfamiliar, the camera trap is a motion sensor. It has a motion sensor attached to the camera, so that when anything moves past it, it triggers the sensor and the camera snaps a picture. And you can change the settings, you can take lots of pictures, you can take few pictures, you can take videos. Now out here, the biggest difficulty when setting up a camera trap around the place is there are things that Peter was sitting with, those spotted hyenas, and they come with a considerable degree of curiosity, and they like to explore the world around them, particularly things that smell like people. They like to explore with their teeth. And it's very easy to lose a camera trap if you haven't placed them high enough, or you haven't got a very solid metal box with them. Now the panthera traps we had to put on the ground so that we could get good views of the leopards, which meant that we lost a couple of them to... They were very well protected in metal boxes, and they were cable tied with metal strands of wire. So they didn't go walkabout too far, but we did lose a few, some to the floods and then some to elephants, and one particularly spectacular picture of a hippo walking away with a camera trap in its mouth. So it's not just hyenas that get curious. Elephants in particular seem to enjoy using them to scratch their knees, and then the camera trap would then sit facing the sky, and we'd get lots of very pretty pictures of insects flying over and birds. There's something of an art to putting up camera traps. It's important to think very carefully about which kind of path you're going to put them up on. Now I imagine if we set one up here around Buffelshoek Dam, we would get some very interesting pictures, and I'm sure that this leopard that we're looking at the moment, I'm fairly certain he would feature quite heavily on the pictures that we get. I can hear a pearl-spotted owlet calling in the distance. And they're one of the few owls that you'll start to hear calling this time of night and then sort of first thing in the morning. We find ourselves still with a very peaceful scene, and Mvula shifting about ever so slightly on the sand. Buffelshoek Dam is the perfect place to spend an afternoon. What I'm going to try and do is move around to the other side so that we can get a view of Mvula's face, and while I do that, I believe that there is a pretty bug in the tent that they would love to show you, so we'll see you very shortly.
Everybody, that is not Tebbs, that is not me, that is not Andrew Francis, that is a spotted tortoise beetle. Isn't it just magnificent? Golden green colours with black spots on it, a bit like the coat of the magnificent leopard that you've been watching. The only noticeably interesting thing about the green or spotted tortoise beetle is that there are a few different kinds of them. There is one there. That's the one we think this one is. There's another one there and a couple of others, and what they do is they eat quite a lot of plant material, flowers. Ipomoea, morning glory, is the particular favorite of the spotted leaf beetle, at least of the spotted tortoise beetle, but just so beautiful to look at them. So you've got a nice look at him there. Now the other thing I want to show you is something, and please, I'm going to reiterate this for our young viewers. It's wonderful to have you along. Don't always do what we do out here. Remember that we're quite well trained. Well, some of us are quite well trained, and what we do is we do pick things up with our hands. This is a piece of fur that came from the impala that Karula was eating just over there not too long ago, and it's a pretty smelly, and you don't know what kind of bacteria and that sort of thing would be on it. So if you're a youngster, in fact even if you're an adult, don't go knocking about the bush picking things up and then sort of putting your hands to your face without washing your hands very carefully too. And also remember, you often see me eating quite a lot of things out here, and it's very important that you don't go into the wild and eat things without knowing exactly what they are. So this is the hare, and as I was discussing today, we looked at those carrion beetles earlier on. And those carrion beetles had eaten away the dung, I think, of a hyena. They'd taken away everything except the hair. And this is hair that's probably either been coughed up by Karula, so they lick the hair off the animal, just like if you see your cat at home licking its fur, they do the same thing with their prey here. So they'll lick the impala, they open up a gap to get their teeth into, and then they tear it open. And that licking, their tongues are like sandpaper. Licking means that they will eventually swallow quite a lot of hair. They must cough that up, and then it'll end up on the floor underneath a tree in which the leopard has been sitting. It's totally indigestible. Almost nothing out here is able to digest keratin and the other bits and pieces that are in hair. The noticeable exception being something like the moth that is growing in our old pal, the buffalo there. I think we should call him Grey Skull. He looks like that carrot. Or so. If you don't know what I'm talking about, please don't worry. It's unimportant. But those moths that live in that skull are able to digest keratin. Otherwise, very little else will. It will eventually then go down into the bush and become part of the nutrients that will feed the grasses and the plants and join the nutrient cycle that is such an important part of what goes on here. Right, so that's the hare from the impala that was eaten by Karula a little while ago. Now the leopard you've been looking at produced two wonderful sons by Mvula, and it was just they left the area as I got here, which was amazing, and I've seen them once or twice, and I'm hoping desperately that Karula and Mvula are going to meet up, because Karula has been mating with Tingana off on Arathusa, and it would seem that those 3 or 4 mating times, I mean it's almost 4 weeks of mating, have not resulted in a pregnancy, we don't think. Now hopefully she'll meet up again with Mvula, who's more her age. They're about 11, they're both 11 years old, And so they're more suited to each other perhaps than Tingana and Karula are, because Tingana of course is younger than Karula, but that's okay in the leopard world. So I'm hoping they'll meet up again and perhaps produce wonderful offspring like they did before. Right, let's just have one last look at this tortoise beetle. I think we have a couple of signal issues with the Mvula at the moment, so let's have one last look at this tortoise beetle on the microscope, and I'll try and get a little bit closer into it. And what I'm going to put next to it is the burnet. Now, we've seen a lot of these burnets, and I'm sure the guides out in the field, well, I know they're showing them to you all the time, but we hadn't had one under the microscope before because they're almost always alive, which is a good thing for them. And they also knock about the place at a great speed, so it's quite difficult to hold them still. And this chap here is the fire grill burnet, and what I want to do is just open him up a little bit. Well, if we come back to me, I'll show you what I'm doing. I'm going to peel away his wing. There we go, peeled away, and we'll put him under the microscope again. And you can see there, look at that incredible color. It looks just like the grill. Looks just like the grill on a barbecue, or what we call a braai here. Alright, so from a burnet, let us go across to Peter. Peter is doing, well, he's driving around exploring the wonder that is this incredible little patch of land that we're able to call home. I'll see you just now.
Well guys, welcome back this side. Lots of interesting things happening. The leopard's sleeping for now, but we literally just spotted these guys, and you know, if you spot something interesting in the bush, you have to have a look. That's in the front there, you all know Scott, John on the camera. They found Mvula earlier actually, in the beginning of the drive when they were tracking this area, and I want to just show you again. Some of you will remember them just behind. Hello Bright in the front, Jeffrey with a black Nat.Geo cap in the back. Jeffrey, nice to see you guys. These guys are great and together they're going to be helping us the next week or two to find great things.
Look what I just found on the ground right here.
I'm going to give this, guys, look at this, and you're gonna think it's a dung beetle ball. Actually, let me put it down there for you. It's perfectly round. We should give this to